All right, somebody tell me, what is a principle in the kingdom? What's another name for a principle in the kingdom? It is a key. What does a key do?
Open things.
It opens things, right? Or it closes things. Thank you, Carol. Because that is correct. It doesn't just open things, it closes things as well. And in Matthew, it tells us that we have the power to bind and loose. The word bind in the original language is to lock, and the word loose is to unlock. And so last week I was telling you, you're never going to understand the Bible in context if you don't understand the kingdom. I don't know why this keeps kicking me out. Sorry. We're doing away from media tonight because I'm not messing with this. I came up here because there was something on the TV I was like, and you know how it is with any kind of streaming service like that, something inappropriate can show up that you don't know is there. And you're like, whoa. That's why I ran up here, is because it was disconnected me. And I was like, I don't know what's about to show up there on TV. So, binding means to lock, loosing means to unlock. You need to know this. These are kingdom words. You want to understand the Bible in context, understand the kingdom. This is the way the enemy takes the teaching of the kingdom and he perverts it. There's a group of people called the Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They take the teachings of the kingdom and they pervert that and they teach that out of context. You want to know what that looks like? Talk to me after class. I would love to talk to you about some of the ways that they do that. When I say pervert, I mean they take a truth and they change truths and they take them out of context. The Bible cannot be taken out of context and be used accurately. Lots of people take the Bible out of context and then they wonder why the Bible's not working for them. This is how a key works in the kingdom. It works every single time if you learn how to use the key. But what you cannot do is manipulate God, and you cannot manipulate the key. So let me tell you, healing works every time. Amen. Thank you, Tom.
Amen.
If you don't believe that, you should have saw the picture Tom sent me of his grandson this afternoon, setting up clearly in a bed. This is a boy who was on a ventilator just a few days ago. Healing works every single time. But God has something called timing. And you cannot manipulate the timing of God to get the result that you want. Does that make sense? But what you can do is you can move the hands and the heart of God, and this isn't manipulation. You can move the hands and the heart of God by moving and stepping in faith. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen when you want it to happen or how you want it to happen. Does that make sense? Financial stability, can I tell you, in the kingdom works every time if you do it God's way. But if you do it your way, good luck with that. Why? It's what we talked about last week whenever I left this place and Pastor closed out last week. Appreciate you doing that for me. And we were talking about all of those different governments, right? And the one thing they all struggled with was what? Does anybody remember this big red word I wrote across here? Control. Can I tell you, that is the number one thing that man in themselves struggles with your whole life. Who in here would admittedly say you're a control freak? Right? Who would say in here you like to control what you can control? And the people that's not, you're a control freak, you're just not admitting to it, right? Because we want to control at least our circumstances. We really want to even control the circumstances of other people. But can I tell you, the only thing that God does not give you free will over in the Bible is other people. He gives you free will where you can control you can control a lot of your own stuff. This is what I always told my kids. You choose your choice, you don't choose your consequence. So you can control things, you just don't get to determine the outcome of what you're trying to control. And usually, this is just free for you. You can write this down if you're taking notes. Anything you're fighting to control, you've already lost. Anybody that's fighting to control power, it's because they've lost power. And they're trying to figure out how to regain power. And that's governments. I mean, that's just how it works. If a parent is fighting to gain control over their kid, it's because they've lost control over their kid somewhere. Right? This just happens. So what you cannot do is you cannot manipulate the hand of God. You can also not manipulate the free will of other people. This is why it's hard. Right? If you have a loved one that you've been praying for and you're like, God, save them, Jesus, and you're not seeing that, they still have free will. And so I taught you a few weeks ago how you pray for that individual that's lost. Pray that God opens their eyes and gets a hold of their heart, because that's what shifts things in their perspective in life. So tonight we're going to continue to talk about the governments, and we're going to talk specifically tonight about democracy. And I told you need your notes from last week. If you don't have them, there's a few copies on the back table back there, but you need the notes also that I gave you on your table. We're going to start with the notes from last week. Go to the page in your notes where it talks about the return of the king. Let me see your notes. You don't have your notes from last week.
Yeah.
Who has your notes from last week? Somebody. Just let me see them just for a second. Yep, this page right here. Page 5. Page 5. They're like, we have hidden the notes in our hearts that we might not sin against the Lord.
The honor students.
My wife's like, I've heard this stuff for 10 years. This is, my wife could probably teach this, actually. Yeah. Page 5. So, now I always know, it's funny, because my wife, in our master bathroom, she has an area that's set aside for prayer. It's because we had a big master bathroom, and when you come in the door, she's got a prayer corner there. And I always find my notes from Wednesday night thrown in there with all of her notes taken on them. All right, so I'm going to turn this on because I forgot to turn this on. I would have not recorded anything. In the Greek culture, that's where it comes from, and we've westernized it. And sometimes this class is going to sound a little bit like history, but again, if you want to understand the Bible, you got to understand the kingdom, because from Genesis to Revelation, it's kingdom language. So America was built, and I know this is going to not set well with some people, and I'll preface this. I'm probably as patriotic as anyone in this room. My dad was a prisoner of war. We was raised in a military home. We was taught you hold doors open for soldiers. If you pass them in stores or restaurants, you go up and you thank them for their service. But there's some truths about America that we must be honest with too. We were built on rebellion. That's what America was built on. We was breaking away from another nation. And we basically took the stuff they sent us over here with and declared war on that nation for our own independence. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's completely wrong. There was some reasons for that. But what you must understand is that the seed of what we did, it was rebellious. And so our founders and farmers who built America, they had this concept of governing that was championed with the thought of democracy, which was a Greek concept or idea, and it was to accommodate their own aspirations. So I want you to go with me here. Forefathers, they were godly men. If you don't believe that, go back and search our forefathers. But there was some of their own aspirations they knew if they stayed under the covering or the umbrella of the nation that sent them, they could not have the aspirations they so desired. And so with that, that's why they declared something called their independence. They're coming out from under the umbrella. I taught you guys, though that seems like a noble cause, that is the worst thing you can have in the kingdom, is when you come out from under the covering of the king in the kingdom. I'm not talking about America now. I'm talking about our relationship with Christ. When you declare independency, you're telling God you don't need him. You can live your life better than he could help you live it for yourself. Now you need to know that for where we're going. America's dream in guiding these principles was three things. You can write this down, okay? This is what America was looking for. Number one was independence. We just touched on that. 2 was self-determination. Have you ever heard this saying in America, anytime we've been attacked, we will build back better?
No.
You haven't heard that?
Yes, but that's, we will, yeah, it's just a
Oh, yeah.
term that I don't
Yes.
find.
Yes. Pastor's like, no. Talk to Pat.
It's a political slogan.
It is a political slogan. And you can talk to Pastor about that after class. So, when we determine that we're going to build back on us, what we're doing is saying we do not need to build back on God. Number 3. Now, I want you to think about this. Independence, self-determination. Number 3 is individuality. We wanted the freedom to express our individuality, and look at where it's got us as a country. And just think about this. Because you're not living under the moral construct of the Constitution of the Kingdom of God, the Bible. You're saying as individuals, not you necessarily, but the people that have gone before us for years, and I'm going to rebound here, and I'm going to give democracy some credit here in just a minute, but you need to understand this. For years, they've been set on it's about individuality. You know what I've realized? So over the last few years, I'm getting older, and so like I hear my kids talk, and I'm like, man, they're changing the meaning of words. We did the same thing. I remember whenever I was growing up, I would tell my dad, I'm like, that's so cool. My dad's like cold? I'm like, no, like cool, man. And then I realized I was changing the definition of a word to fit a narrative. And that's a minor one, but we've all done this generationally where we want to express individuality to the fact where our nation is just crazy right now because it's not built any longer on morality like it was way back here. Democracy is a beautiful thing if it's led by moral people, godly moral people. It is a terrible thing if the people that's in charge at the top is not biblically based, godly, moral people, because they become their own law. We become our own law. Let me tell you something you never do in a kingdom. In a kingdom, you never take a vote because Jesus didn't ask for your opinion. In a kingdom, you never vote the king in, so you cannot vote the king out. Jesus is Jesus. He doesn't need your vote. But in democracy, it's totally the opposite of that. And again, I would love to tell you this. Democracy is actually the best government system we have on earth. It really is. If you don't believe that, just go to other nations. They're striving to be like America. Democracy is a wonderful thing. But we have even watched the change of our nation in the last 10 years to where it doesn't even look like America looked like 10 years ago. It doesn't look like the America I grew up in as a kid. We're a different nation, and not for the better. What happened? What happened is we've shifted and moved moral boundaries because we had nothing that was absolute. So you have to know in the kingdom, it's totally the opposite. And I'm going to show you in just a second, but from the very beginning of this thing, God's mandate to man was this. It was a political mission. He sent us down here to expand his territory on earth. That's what he sent us here for. He's like, you're going to be in a relationship with me. You're going to be my ambassador. You're going to grow my kingdom through the whole earth. Sin came in and messed it up. Now, I can give you the Bible in 1 minute, okay? This is the Bible in 1 minute. From Genesis to Malachi, it talks about Jesus is coming. From Matthew to John, it talks about he's here. From John to Revelation, it talks about he's coming back. That's the Bible. So now you squeeze all that together. Why did Jesus have to come down here in the first place? Because we forfeited the assignment that he gave us, and he had to reestablish the kingdom. He wants earth, and if you don't believe this, read Matthew chapter 5 and 6. He wants earth to look like heaven. That was the original intent. Said he walked in the garden and he had relationship with man. They talked. There was nothing that was hidden between them. Like man just talked. He was open. And sin came in and messed all of that up. And at that moment, Jesus said, I've got to go down there and fix that. The problem with not giving Jesus control is this. We say he's our king. Remember what I told you king and Lord means? King means ruler. So we say he's our king, our ruler. And we say he's our Lord, he owns us. But we still want to make all of our own decisions and build our lives around us. We want him to be our ruler and owner without forfeiting control. And what happens there is you create a false religion around yourself, where you make yourself a little God. And then you want to add him in to your world. Jesus isn't like that. Man, Jesus will blow your mind where he'll take you and what he'll do with you in your life when you surrender to him. And I would love to say that's an easy process, but it's not. It sounds simple, but it's a tough process, and you have to do it. Can I tell you this? Daily. You have to die to yourself daily. I mean, sometimes you have to hold your tongue. I mean, sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do. I mean, sometimes you have to go places that you don't want to go. That means sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone when you don't want to step out of your comfort zone. Sometimes you want to love when you don't feel like loving. Sometimes you have to serve when you don't feel like serving. You know how I know Jesus doesn't fully own us? By the way we worship. We don't worship like he owns us usually. Because we hear this all the time. Well, I don't feel like raising my hands. I don't feel like clapping. He never asks you how you feel. We center, and I'm not saying you should jump and scream and shout. And that's not my personality. Jesus knows what your personality is. He made you. But if he walked in the room today, I can promise you what we would all do if he walked in the room today. We would fall on our faces as though we were dead. Because there was people that did way crazier things than we've ever done. And it says that when they saw him, they fell as they were dead. They could not move in his presence. I love where it says they caught a globe of the glimpse of the train of his robe. They could not move. Just the awe of that moment. And we've taken the freedom that we've been given in democracy and we've built our life around us. God, I'll follow you as long as it's comfortable. I'll follow you as long as it's convenient. Can I tell you, following Jesus is usually never comfortable and is never convenient. Because the things that Jesus asks you to do will stretch you. Why? Because he's more concerned about you being holy than he is you being comfortable. He's more concerned about you living on mission than you being comfortable. And so, but if you'll follow him, he'll do awesome things with your life. Write this in your notes. Whatever you celebrate, Pastor A.B. and Christy, they always tell me that God speaks to me like Dr. Seuss. Whatever you celebrate, you elevate. Whatever you elevate, you worship. Whatever you celebrate, you elevate. Whatever you celebrate, you elevate. Whatever you elevate, you worship. Now, I used to say so often, I would say, I don't celebrate things very well. I can sometimes tend to find the negative. Anybody else like that? Right? And you can see the negative before you can see the positive. And so, like, I look at my kids and I look at life in general, and sometimes I would tell God, I really struggle with celebrating. I don't celebrate well. And the Lord corrected me one day, and he said, you do celebrate, you just celebrate the wrong things. And I was like, wait a minute, God, I don't understand what you're saying. And he said, you know how you know what you're celebrating? By what you elevate, what you're always looking up to, what you're always looking at, what you're always talking about, what you're always investing in. And he said, sometimes you celebrate the wrong thing. Not like what we would look at as like awful, blatant sin, but sometimes it's the wrong thing. Sometimes, rather than pausing and looking at the awesome thing that God just did, it's like, yeah, but why didn't God do this? Am I alone in that? Anybody else? Right? When you see Jesus the way that Adam saw Jesus before he fell into sin, there was this atmosphere of elevation where he was always looking up to Jesus. And that allowed Adam to walk on earth like Jesus. And he was on mission, he was in relationship, he was on assignment. The moment that was lost, since the moment that was lost, man and woman has always searched in their heart to try to find that place with God. So we fill it. We fill it with relationships. We fill it with hobbies. We fill it with idle time. You name it. You see people that they get to the pinnacle of what we would call success in life, right? So you see like rock stars and musicians and actors and actresses. And they get to the top of what we would look at as life, and I'm saying we in this room, but I'm saying general population would look at and say that's success. And they say the same things. I feel so empty. Why? Because they don't even know what they're looking for. What they're really looking for is a kingdom that they lost all the way over here. And the reason they lost it's because they fell out of relationship with the king. And what God's trying to do is push us as humanity back into alignment with the king that we can continue to expand his kingdom. So, these 5 things are the things that democracy offers. Checks and balances. Well, it used to, right? Now that's even at question a little bit. Majority rule. That seems like a good idea. Like I said, but as long as godly people, godly moral people are in leadership, great idea. If they're not, terrible idea. Opportunity for broad-based rights, participation in the political process, and protection against monopolization. Let's look at the first one. Majority rule. This is legalizing the majority's values, their desires, their beliefs, aspirations, and preferences. What you need to know, and you can write this in your notes, is nowhere in that statement is that built on Jesus. That's built on popular opinion. Pastor, what do you think? Tom, what do you think? Corey, what do you think? You know, Bill, what do you think? You go around the room. Amanda, what do you think? And then we would come to a consensus. What is the popular opinion in the room? And we're going to make a rule out of the popular opinion. Majority rule. Doesn't mean it's based on God. It's what the majority thinks. Now here's a crazy thing. Now we're passing laws that's not based on majority rule. You know how I know that? Because this whole transgender thing and this whole homosexuality push, that's not even 1/10 of the percentage of our population that we're curbing our entire society towards. And nobody wants to stand up and say, that's wrong for the fear of being canceled. And we're being pushed into a corner as believers where the Lord's going, you're going to have to make a stance on this in a loving way. You can love people and not love their sin, not embrace their sin, but look at this and go, this is crazy and this is wrong. That's not my opinion. That's what my king says. This is crazy and that's wrong. And so when they're like, well, there's many genders and there's many things that people could identify as, that's not what your Bible teaches you. But what does law say? Well, now they're curbing law away from majority. Now, what you need to know is this. This really is the reemergence and manifestation of an age-old philosophy called humanism. If you don't know what this is, write that word in your notes because you need to go home and you need to research what this word is. Humanism is simply man's way of becoming their own measure of morality and judgment and justice that places man at the mercy of only themselves. Humanism. Yep. Humanism is where man is becoming their own measure for morality. Judgment and justice is placed on the mercy of themselves. So, moving on. Democracy without accountability, then, is like an exercise of moral roulette. Sometimes it's going to work and hit, and sometimes it's going to miss. If it's built on God, it works every single time. God is not subject to our politics. And so when people try to pull you into political arguments, don't take the bait on that. Can I tell you? You need to know what's going on. Don't be ignorant. There's an old redneck saying that says this: the ostrich that sticks his head in the sand is guaranteed to get his butt burned every time. You have to know what's going on in the world around you. But we're in this world. We're not of this world. We don't live our lives based on the for this world. We're living our lives, guys, for something that's way bigger. And so we have to be able to step higher and see broader. And when you make decisions that are kingdom focused and not just worldly focused, this is why you got to be careful with the news, is because I don't care if it's Fox or CNN, they both have a narrative. I don't care if it's ABC, NBC, CBS, NBC. They all have a narrative. And what they're trying to get you to do is take the bait and bite and chase their narrative. Why? That's how they make money. If the news ain't making money, they don't exist in culture today, society today. And this is why it's like, oh yeah, we put out these stories and they're completely wrong and we knew they were wrong. We're sorry. And they still do that. Why? Because it's a system. It's not a godly based system. It's a system. So I'm going to say this and then I'm going to break you up here in just a minute. And we're going to discuss what it means to colonize, okay? The assignment that was given to the first man, Adam, in the Garden of Eden was a political assignment. And I want you to hear me on this. It was a political assignment given to a spirit being living in a flesh body. Okay? Political assignment given to a spirit being living in a flesh body. And I always say this to ladies. The first thing that God gave Adam was a job. If some dude comes to you and he's all interested in you and he doesn't have that, that dude needs to take a rain check till he goes and gets his stuff in order, because the first thing God gave him was a job. Get yourself in order. Therefore, in the context of a biblical mandate, the concept of separation of church and state is a government, separation of church and state is a lofty idea and it has no biblical root or fact. Now let me tell you why I say this. Because the original mandate to man was a kingdom assignment. It was to go replenish the world and spread the kingdom. It was to take that thing and keep multiplying the kingdom. Where it got off was sin. And can I tell you, the seed of all sin, and you can write this down, is self. Self. Every sin you could look at in your life will trace you back to self in one way or another. In essence, the problem with democracy is it's a rule of the people that is voted on by the people, that is for the people, and it can be voted on incorrectly. Another weakness with democracy is it is not absolute. It can always be changing. The concepts and laws blow like the wind, to the fact they're wanting to change parts of our Constitution now, right? We see this. And it can be easily influenced by changing culture. That's why Jesus said, I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. I'll be the same. He says, you can count on this. This doesn't change. Can I tell you, when you stand before Jesus, whether you was Jewish, whether you was Iranian, whether you was American, whether you was Canadian, Mexican, when you stand before the Father, He's going to ask you about this law. He's not asking you about your own country's law. He's saying, what did you do with this law? What did you do with what I gave you here? And so let's look real quick, and I'll break you up at your new notes. It's those 2 pages you have in front of you, okay? All right, before we get into the notes, somebody tell me, what does it mean to colonize something? What is, to group it together? Okay. What does it mean to colonize something? To colonize a nation. What does that mean? Jesus is trying to call somebody. Take possession. Okay. What else? What does it mean to colonize something?
To take something that's already there and change it to your perspective.
To change it, something that's already there to your perspective. Okay. I think it's all of those things. I think if you looked at it from a country's point of view, it's to make a country over here a complete mirror image, identical image over here. So if I had Carol Cole come up here, you don't have to, but if I had her come up here and stand here and I put a mirror in front of Carol Cole, can I tell you the reflection that is in the mirror is going to be identical to who she is.
Right.
The mirror is like a colonization of who she is. And so she can't look at the mirror and go, I don't like how that looks. That mirror makes me look funny. And be like, well, maybe you look funny, right? Like, I'm not saying that to you, Carol. I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying we understand that on a basic concept. Did you know Jesus really wants earth to look like heaven? This is why all the way through the Old Testament, he's pushing them, correcting them, leading them. He tells the Israelites, he fixes their mistakes. He shows them how to fix mistakes. He has grace and mercy on them. And they keep going back to the world system. And then Jesus, he has mercy and grace and love, and there's consequences, but he directs them back. Why? He was wanting them to what? Look like him. You know how I know that? In the Bible, he calls us his bride. And he says, when he comes back, we will be what?
Like him.
And we will be pure. We will be spotless. He says, when I look in the mirror, I will see myself. She will look like me. And when he comes back, can I tell you, he's not coming back for a bride that's any less than what he told us in his word. And so, in your notes there, and these notes come from... I gave credit to the top there, the sources. Kingdom is a governing influence of a king over his territory, impacting it with his will, his purpose, and his intent, producing a citizenry of people who express his culture to reflect his nature. And I'm reading this because I don't want to leave anything out here. It is probably a safe bet that many reading these notes or attending this class today have never really understood or seen the true importance of the kingdom in the Bible. Many have read the kingdom in the Bible and they have never realized it is the central theme that runs from the first verse in Revelation, or Genesis, to the last verse in Revelation. It is in the story of creation, destruction, restoration, and dominion. The kingdom is the backdrop for every single parable that you read in the New Testament. If you don't believe that, go back and read the parables. Every single parable he relates back to the kingdom, or he puts a kingdom key inside of there to show them something about his kingdom. It is the reason for every miracle. It is the purpose, the Messiah, and the reason that we were created. So here's a couple of scriptures for you. Colossians 1:13. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness, or the kingdom of darkness, and brought us into the kingdom of the Son that he loves, or the kingdom of light. Can I tell you, Jesus did for you what you could not do for yourself. But what we tend to do, and I'm going to just show you something that's crazy, is we tend to think that we can do it better than he does it. And don't beat yourself up for this, because this is an age-old human problem. I love the story of Jonah, right? So Jonah is like told to go to Nineveh. And he's like, hey, God's like, go to Nineveh. These people are awful sinners. You need to take a message here. He's like, not today. You know why he didn't want to go to Nineveh? Does anybody know?
Because they would repent.
It wasn't because they were bad there. It was because they were going to repent. He's like, God, I'm going to go there. These people are going to repent. They're going to turn to you, right? And he was salty about the people turning. Yes. And so he didn't want to go. They were bad. They were awful people. But he's like, and then they're going to go back and they're going to do the same thing again. This is going to be a pointless mission. And so, but this is the part of Jonah I love. So he avoids Nineveh, right? He jumps on the ship. He's going in a ship in the opposite direction away from Nineveh. Big storm comes. You guys know the story. And waves come. The ship's about to sink. They're throwing the cargo and all the stuff over the ship to keep it afloat. And all of a sudden, he tells the captain and the crewman, hey, I'm the guy. God's ticked off at me. If you throw me into the ocean, this will all be calm. Everything will cease. And but it says something in your Bible after that. It says, but the men rowed harder towards the land. They thought they could do better than what God was telling them to do. Finally, they came to the decision, okay, buddy, you're going overboard. But
why did they have to throw him? Why couldn't he just jump?
That's a good that's a good question, Beth. That is a fantastic question. And the answer is, Beth, I don't know. He had control.
Yes.
He had free will. And he chose.
They didn't really want to go.
Would you? Well, here you go. Would you jump? Why wouldn't we jump if we knew God told us to do that?
Fear.
What if scared?
Fear. What if scared? Because you know what? There's a lot of times where God tells us to jump today, and we're hanging onto the boat like, somebody throw me over. And God's like, but God took care of him.
But him not jumping too and waiting for the people to throw him could be also a way that God could have shown himself to the other people, because when they submitted to his will, then the storm was calm. So it wasn't just Jonah having that moment, it was the people in the boat that were realizing.
That's good. That could be a reason too. Yeah. The Bible. What'd you say?
She said it would have been suicide if he would have done it that way.
Yeah. Here's the thing about the Bible that's so awesome. You can sit back and you can have these discussions with people. You can go, have you ever thought about this? Why did he not jump? And there's no right or wrong answer to that. I mean, we don't know. But man, it opens up so much dialogue. If we could just do this in this class and make the Bible that simple, you know how that would relate to people out there? But we muddy this stuff up. We make it so theology and so difficult. The Bible's conversation. And he was a real guy, just like us, who struggled, who had what ifs, who struggled, who had fear. And there was people watching him going, what's going to happen? And then all of a sudden they throw him over, boom, his fish comes, right? And we know this isn't a fairy tale because this actually happened to whalers back in the day too. And he lives. But it took place, and he had to go where God sent him. But it was the struggle of self. And we still, 2,000 years later, are struggling with the same battle of. Sometimes it's as simple as God says, hey, I want you to take this to your neighbor. And you're like, you don't know my neighbor, Jesus. My neighbor on my left side or my neighbor on my right side? When we lived in Nebraska, we had a neighbor on our left side we absolutely loved. They loved our kids. We loved them. We loved their dog. And I would invite him over to small group. And they wouldn't come. And there was a couple small groups we had in the backyard. And in the backyard, we were having a marshmallow roast. And I said, hey, why don't you guys come over? And they showed up, and he had a Coors Light can in his hand. They're like, oh my gosh, Pastor has this guy at his house that's got a Coors Light beer in a can in his hand. And I'm like, yeah, because I want to reach this guy. I'm not kicking back a 40 with the guy. I want to reach this guy for Jesus. And so, but you know what? That wasn't the stumbling block for me because it was relationship with this individual. Now, the ones on the right of us, if the Frisbee went in their yard, they fed the Frisbee to the dog. It was like, Jesus, you can take care of those people. Right? But sometimes God asks us to do things, and he says, so I remember when God told me, he said, hey, the guy who was over here that I invited to my life group, right? He also had a really bad problem with some medical issues. And I remember one day God said, hey, I want you to go shovel his driveway. And I'm not talking like Illinois snow. I'm talking like Nebraska snow. And so I was like, okay, Jesus, he's a cool guy. He's hung out at my house a few times. I went and me and Zeke, we shoveled his driveway, and we got done, and we're walking back to the house, and God said, and his driveway. And I was like the mean neighbor? Like that guy? And I was like, Zeke's like, we're really doing this guy's driveway? I said, yeah. And the first time we did it, he opened the door and he was not happy. He told me off. But I was like, I knew this is what God told me to do. And so the next time, it was like a couple days later, we had a big snow. God said, go do his driveway. So I go over and I do this guy's driveway. He said, and that guy's driveway. And so we go over and we're doing his driveway, and he opens the door and he said, hey, thank you. Can I tell you, the gospel is not always fun, but it works. Because I watched over time, these people became softer because of simple acts of love and obedience. And so you don't know. You don't know why he didn't jump. All you're responsible for is when God tells you to jump, you better jump. When God tells you to stay on the boat, you better stay on the boat. Or have somebody throw you over, my wife said.
Well, there is an answer to that question.
All right, Pastor.
Okay. Because,
He was just Googling.
yeah, well, no, I'm just looking up the scripture.
What is
And
the
so,
answer?
Yeah. And so, basically, they cast lots and they're trying to figure out who it is. It falls on Jonah, so they go to Jonah, and they ask him the question. Okay, they go, "What shall we do to you that the sea may quiet down for us?" The sea grew more and more, and then he said, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you." And that's when the scripture is, "Nevertheless they rowed harder." All right, so they were trying to actually spare his life
Okay.
until it came to, we got to do what the guy said. When they did what Jonah said, then it says, then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, because they saw the results.
That's what you were saying, Andrea.
Yeah. So Andrea that would be the answer to this, that the Lord, I think, had it done that way because the prophet had to speak what the Lord said to do, because it wasn't just about Jonah.
But still, was God telling him to tell them to throw him over?
Well, obviously he said it. I mean, think about it this way. I mean, what would you do? You're not going to say, "Hey guys, just throw me over." You know, maybe you can get to land and it's all over. But so Andrew's right.
Yeah, I would say though, like,
Scripture speaks for itself.
yes, it does.
You can't argue that.
No. All right. All right, so let's look at one more thing real quick, and then I'm going to break you guys into groups, and I want you to discuss something before we leave here. All right, so go to the next page there in your notes where it talks about colony at the top. A colony is a territory that is under the control of a country called an imperialistic authority. Matthew 6, 1 through 14. All right, so this is what we're going to look at. Examples of colonies in relationship to their motherland, okay? The Bahamas. Who's ever been to the Bahamas? Bless your souls. I will never go there unless the Lord would tell me to go there. It's across the ocean, man. But did you know the Bahamas was a colony of Great Britain? And if you go there, they speak what's called the Queen's English. And if you go there, they still drink hot tea. And it is a hot environment. Why do they do that? Because it was instilled in them whenever they became a colony. How about Cuba? It was a colony of Spain. This is why the population there is hugely Catholic. It was transitioned there. This is why Spanish language is what is spoke there. It was the colony that was made there. What about Haiti? It was a colony of France. This is why if you go there, they speak French and they eat wine or drink wine and eat cheese.
Well, not really.
In Haiti?
It's kind of hard to find.
Okay. Well, originally this is what they did. And in Haiti, and I would say Haiti and Cuba, they're probably nothing like they originally was when they were built as a colony, because
Agreed. That's true.
they've went defunct because they was built on
There's the Bahamas.
immoral land. The Bahamas is what? The same as America. Why? You're building You're taking a colony that was originally looking like the original land, and without the leadership of God, you will always become immoral and defunct. And you will get to the place where, like we are in America, we just said, it's not the America that we looked at 20 years ago. It's not even the same country. If you don't believe that, whenever they went to do my scan for my arm in the hospital, the lady told me, she's like, we cannot find people that can run the ultrasound machine. We're so short of ultrasound workers in this region right here. And I was like, why? And she's like, well, people are leaving the state. That's a different discussion. But people don't want to work.
Right.
It's not the same America we grew up in. And so, I put in your notes there, the word means this. It means to do again or go back to the original state. So we are called to reestablish the kingdom. That it means this. We are called to reconnect people to the kingdom of God. To go back and do again. Then I gave you some notes there. And but this is what I want you to spend the rest of the time doing. Okay, we got about 6 minutes. I'm going to break you guys off into groups. Back table with the back table. Your table, Corey, you can pull up with these wonderful ladies right here. Carol, you can pull up with them, and you guys can go with these guys. And this is the discussion I want you to have. What is the difference? You guys can go ahead and move. Between.
Well, he left me out. I'm still
Oh, sorry, Beth. You can just go wherever.
Oh, I thought you were going with them.
Democracy versus.
Right, like that. Or at least I'm gonna consider.
You're not going to know the answer to this, I promise. You're going to have to Google this. You're going to have to research this. You're going to have to look this up.
All right.
You guys gonna turn around to us?
Hey, these notes here, bring these next week because we're going to talk more about these next week.
You guys together?
Yep, you're with these guys. The difference between a democracy and a republic. Go.
Oh, good. I get
I am a teacher, but I mean, that's.
What does it say about democracy?
Republic has representative democracy is just like the men have whatever the majority is what they do.
I don't know. I know both the words are democracy and then
I think when you're saying the men, I think the
This is the.
Governed by a democracy
This would be awesome for the camp school.
I felt like
of an organization or group by a majority of members.
That'd be good.
I don't see the difference.
And let me know if there is a difference.
This says modern republics are founded on the idea that sovereignty is so who is included in next to the category of people that's very across history.
I guess a democracy is
People, well, women couldn't vote before. Black couldn't vote before, so there were people excluded.
This says here that the key difference between democracy and republic lies in limits based on government by the law, which has implications for minority rights. So a citizen's vote to a small business represents interests and form the government. Public constitutional charter of one protects certain inalienable rights that cannot be taken away by the government. Something about democracy that can be taken away by the government.
You know, they can.
In a democracy, but not in a republic. That's why you see the Constitution, that's why you see the attack on the Supreme Court right now. Because they're trying to push us into a system of government where the whole population and all the eligible members of the state. So, it says here, in a democracy, in a pure democracy, the majority is not restrained. And in this way, it can impose its will on the minority.
I can't break that apart.
Your republic, how does the republic become a?
In republic, your protection is the Constitution. And what's the, okay, let's use the example of the church's constitutional bylaws. The answers are always in the constitutional bylaws of what we can and cannot do. They govern us. And so when you stop looking to enforce that, okay, we're gonna sell property, and we just make a decision to do it, and we violate bylaws. Our bylaws and constitution say that the members of the church have to vote on whether or not to do that. So your constitution in the United States is there to protect everybody, no matter if you're a minority or majority.
You know what I mean, like.
And it doesn't matter how big government gets, because you always have your constitution to protect you. Second Amendment. Take that example.
All right.
Okay. So democracy is what it is. The majority grows and grows and grows. If they don't want the Second Amendment, and then what we see today. They go, we're changing it.
We will re-engage this question next week. I want to say this real quick, and then we're going to pray and we're going to dismiss because it's time to let you guys out.
We're not gonna have discussions.
Well, I'm going to give you an assignment with this. Pastor said something that I heard that was key. This is one of the major differences. In a republic, you are protected by the Constitution. And in a democracy, not so much, right? And they was discussing this as a group. I heard this, and we're going to discuss this next week. But this is why we're not going to get into a lot of discussion tonight, because one, we're right at time, but two, this is why it's so essential you know your Bible. If you stay in the Constitution, you're protected. But when you start adding your opinion to this, you move out from under the original governing system you was created to function in. So whenever you start twisting Scripture to make it say what you want it to say, you come out from underneath the covering. You got to stay in the covering of this. So this is what, yes.
Okay, so an example of that would be, from the church's point of view, why you see certain denominations that are becoming or embracing the LGBTQ, and they're ordaining homosexual priests, and you're going, okay, how can that happen? Well, the majority in that denomination,
It's a democracy.
has said, we're going to reinterpret what we used to live this way, but now we see there's a different way to live, and so that's what we're going to begin to do.
Yep.
In Republic, you're saying,
The law is the law.
we're saying, if we stay with the word, the answers are always in the Constitution.
Yes.
The law is the law. And what?
Amen.
This is the killing word of democracy, equality.
Oh,
And people's like, what? Equality. Can I tell you, whenever we're saying everything's got to be equal, everything's got to be fair, everything's not always equal or fair. It's not. It's
It wasn't even that way in Jesus' day.
wasn't that way in Jesus' day. But can I tell you, in the kingdom, there is an equality and a fairness system. It's called If You Stay Under the Covering of the King. Everything. You know how I know that? Because there's a parable in the New Testament that talks about a worker who's in a field all day and a worker who shows up and only works a few hours and they get paid the same wage. You know why? They was underneath the covenant, the law. That's actually a kingdom parable to teach us something. Where we get off is whenever out from under the covering is whenever we stray away from the Constitution that He set for us. And so what those churches have done is they've done things like this. Well, they take the scriptures on love and they'll say, well, like David was gay because it says he loved Jonathan. No, they're taking that relationship and they're totally skewing that, and they're totally taking it out of context. And so they use relationships like that to justify the behavior of electing those people in pulpits. And Jesus goes, I can't honor that because you're out from underneath the covering of the Constitution. So we've set those systems up of religion as democracy. This is what you need to know. Every single person in this room loves tradition, whether you believe it or not. Yep. And every single person in this room hates tradition as long as it's not your own tradition. Right. So you'll say, oh, I hate tradition, as long as it's not your own. But if you're asked to change something that you viewed as really valuable, you'll see you love tradition. So just make sure your tradition lines up with the law. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for each and every person in this room. I thank you that you're teaching us and equipping us, God, with the truth of your word, because that's what sets us free. You say that we should know the truth, and the truth will set us free. It's just not the laws of man. It is the law of your word, plain and simple. And if we're out of alignment in any area of our life, God, with your word, I pray tonight we would not fall under condemnation. But Lord, I pray the sweet conviction of the Holy Spirit would just bring us back into alignment with you. We would do the right things. We would make the right moves and the right corrections in our life that need to be made, that we could come into alignment with you. And you said in Matthew 6:33 that we would seek your kingdom and your righteousness to be in a right alignment, God, with your constitution, with your rule. So we thank you and we praise you. Continue to heal bodies that are sick, mend relationships, and continue to grow this church, God, so that we can have more influence in our region. In your name we pray. Amen. Here's your assignment. You're going to take this question home. You're going to come back with some answers to this on your own. And then I want you to tell me the difference between these two things and the kingdom from what you've read.